Have you ever heard of near-death experiences? Those moments when someone stands at the boundary between life and death, where logic and science can no longer provide clear explanations? Today, I'd like to share the story of Jeff Cleckley, who crossed that threshold, encountered luminous beings, and returned with a truly remarkable mission. It all began more than 10 years ago, when Jeff's life started to spiral into darkness. He had served in the military as a paratrooper, making frequent jumps out of aircraft and subjecting his body to repetitive trauma. These years of high-impact landings wreaked havoc on his spine and surrounding musculature, leaving him with persistent, worsening back pain. At first, Jeff tried to power through, relying on his strength, discipline, and the sort of resilience he'd learned in the service. Yet, with each passing month, the pain grew harder to ignore, until one day, his back almost completely gave out. He found himself barely able to stand or walk without agonizing discomfort, and working a normal job became impossible. Desperate to find relief, Jeff visited numerous doctors, specialists, and physical therapists. Eventually, a physician prescribed opioid painkillers to help him manage his unrelenting pain. In the beginning, these medications seemed like a godsend. They dulled the constant ache that kept him from sleeping, moving, and even caring for his family the way he wanted to. But soon enough, Jeff realized he was walking a dangerous path. The more he relied on opioids, the more control they exerted over his mind and body. He lost interest in the everyday tasks that used to give him purpose. When the painkillers were in his system, everything felt hazy. When they wore off, the agony flared to intolerable levels. Inevitably, Jeff's life began to unravel. As his physical condition deteriorated and his mental health nosedived, his job slipped away. The loss of income led to financial desperation. Bills piled up, each one a stark reminder that he was no longer able to provide in the way he once had. His relationships frayed under the strain of his chronic pain and the side effects of the medication, which sometimes made him irritable and incoherent. He felt trapped in a downward spiral. Then came December 2012, when, as if fate were testing him further, Jeff was struck by pneumonia. He had just enough strength to get through the illness, battling fever and respiratory distress, only to face an even graver challenge 2 months later. In February 2013, he was diagnosed with MRSA, a life-threatening bacterial infection notorious for its resistance to many antibiotics. For 7 days, he lay bedridden in the hospital, listening to doctors warn him that if the strongest treatments failed, he wouldn't make it. Surgery loomed as a last resort to stop the bacteria from spreading. He could almost feel hope draining away, replaced by a grim acceptance that his body was betraying him on multiple fronts. Pain, pneumonia, MRSA. Any one of these could have been enough to break a person's spirit. For Jeff, it felt like life was piling disaster upon disaster. It was during this dark time that he found himself standing on the precipice of something truly extraordinary. One night, Jeff's pain reached a point beyond endurance. In a haze of desperation, he accidentally took too many painkillers, unaware of how perilous this overdose might be. As the opioids overwhelmed his system, he was suddenly seized by violent nausea. Waves of heat and sweat drenched him as he stumbled to the bathroom, retching until there was nothing left. Body trembling, he collapsed onto the cold tile floor. He felt his energy, and possibly his life, slipping away. That was when the impossible happened. He no longer felt himself on the floor at all. Opening his eyes, he saw himself. From above, he gazed down at his own motionless body, sprawled across the bathroom floor. There was a brief moment when panic threatened to overtake him, but it never fully arrived. Instead, he felt an inexplicable sense of calm. Something powerful pulled him away, as if snatching him out of his physical vessel. He was whisked through a tunnel suffused with brilliant light. There was no roar of wind, no crushing terror, just a rapid, almost serene motion. Then, as the searing brightness softened, he found himself in what he would later describe as the second heaven. Awaiting him, there were three luminous beings. They didn't speak in words, yet he felt an overwhelming sense of unconditional love radiating from them. It was a peace so absolute that he realized he had never genuinely experienced such tranquility on Earth. In that moment, Jeff understood he was dead, or at least existing beyond the boundaries of his old life. What came next was a profound life review. Every significant moment in his past flashed before him. The times he showed kindness to a friend, the hurtful things he'd said to loved ones, even small acts he had long forgotten. It wasn't just a visual replay. Jeff was immersed in the emotional currents of these events, experiencing both the positive and negative feelings he had instigated in others. Each time he had contributed something good, he felt their joy and gratitude. Each time he had hurt someone, he felt their anguish as if it were his own. Two of the beings stood at either side, while the central figure, radiating infinite compassion, guided him gently through each memory. If the review revealed him at fault, they didn't chastise him. Instead, they offered gentle guidance. Next time, do it this way. It was never condescending. It was more like the kind encouragement of a loving teacher. Still, Jeff was filled with regret. He had never realized how interconnected his life was with the lives of others. Every action, every choice had a ripple effect. And in this otherworldly space, he experienced those ripples firsthand. When this vivid review came to an end, the central being unveiled a sobering truth. Jeff would not be returning to the life he had left behind. He would be reborn, given a chance to start over in a brand new life, to address the lessons he had yet to learn. Before he could process this revelation, anger flared within him. He had a 4-year-old son back on Earth. How could he abandon this child who needed him? Filled with urgency, Jeff confronted the three beings, protesting, "You sent me down there without instruction. Now you say I did everything wrong. If you want me to go with you, I will, but you need to show me how to do it right. Then I'll return and do what's right." In an instant, the environment changed dramatically. Countless luminous figures materialized, their presence radiating love so intense that Jeff felt himself trembling with awe. A voice, though it was more like a resonant wave coursing straight into his consciousness, pronounced 3 statements. "Love everyone, for you are everyone. Do not be afraid, for fear is humanity's destroyer. Recognize that you are part of the divine." These words carried a monumental weight. He sensed that they weren't just instructions for him alone, but universal truths meant for all human beings. With that message came a profound mission. If Jeff chose to return, he would have to live by these principles and share them widely. At the thought of his son, he agreed without hesitation. Instantly, he felt himself pulled backward, rushing through the tunnel of light until he slammed into his physical form. Suddenly, he opened his eyes, back on the bathroom floor. The pain in his body roared back to life. But something within him had changed, irrevocably and forever. Following this near-death experience, Jeff embarked on a quest to understand what had happened to him. Traditional explanations, medical or otherwise, seemed insufficient to account for the intensity and clarity of his vision. He began exploring spiritual practices, craving a deeper connection to the reality he had glimpsed beyond the veil. Intrigued by reports that certain substances could induce near-death-like states, Jeff tried DMT and psilocybin mushrooms. While these brought about altered states, they never fully captured the sense of unity and unconditional love he had felt during his true near-death experience. It was only when he turned to meditation that he sensed a genuine reconnection with the second heaven. Through consistent, disciplined practice, Jeff discovered he could quiet his mind enough to tap into something greater than himself. Over time, he realized that he had acquired new abilities. He began to see or sense non-physical presences, energies or spirits that most people couldn't perceive. He could intuitively pick up on hidden emotions in others, sometimes even understanding their pain and fears before they spoke. Astonishingly, he also found that by focusing his intentions and channeling what felt like divine energy, he could help others heal or at least soothe their ailments. This was not a power he had ever sought. It felt more like a responsibility handed down to him. With curiosity and reverence, Jeff continued to develop these abilities, often reading about spiritual healers, mystics, and even angelic encounters. One name kept appearing in his meditations: Metatron, an angelic figure mentioned in various mystical traditions. Jeff, who had never heard of Metatron before, felt the presence of an extraordinarily radiant being, guiding him, teaching him to harness his newfound gifts for the benefit of others. One of the most striking examples of Jeff's abilities occurred when his nephew fell into a coma. Unable to be physically present at the hospital, Jeff turned to the only avenue he had: meditation. In a deeply focused state, he perceived his nephew's spirit trapped in a kind of shadowy realm, a place between life and death, much like the boundary Jeff himself had once crossed. Speaking directly to his nephew's spirit, Jeff urged him to return, promising that people who loved him were waiting in the physical world. The next morning, his nephew woke up and described in striking detail the same realm Jeff had observed during meditation. This was a turning point for Jeff. It confirmed the authenticity of his own experiences and affirmed that his purpose was to help others, whether by healing, spiritual guidance, or simply sharing the message he had been given. The mission he received in the second heaven was no longer a private conviction, but a living, breathing reality that touched the lives of those around him. Since that time, Jeff has committed himself to a guiding principle: live free of fear and doubt, embrace love and unwavering faith. He stands by the conviction that human beings are far more powerful than they believe. Every thought, every word, and every emotion shapes the reality we inhabit. By dwelling in negativity, we invite more negativity to take hold. Conversely, by genuinely believing in our innate divine connection, we can create miraculous changes in our own lives and in the world. Jeff's journey from the depths of despair to the pinnacle of a near-death revelation underscores a transformative truth. We are all part of something infinitely larger. In that divine unity lies an unimaginable power of love and creativity. His story serves as a beacon of hope, reminding us that even in our darkest moments we can find redemption, purpose, and a cosmic sense of belonging. Jeff Cleckley did not simply survive his ordeal. He returned with a mission. He is here to share the simple yet profound truths gleaned from his passage through the afterlife. Love one another, reject fear, and remember that we are never truly separate from the source that birthed us. If this story resonates with you, please share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe to discover more near-death experiences. Thanks for watching and see you in the next video.